Well, hello there. I'm going to show you how to do an owl eye zigzag blanket or hat. I guess I've been doing too many blankets. Anyway, it's a zigzag hat using owl eye. Okay, so you can see that the owl eye stitch in the round is coming up like this, and then it's going up like that. And you'll be able to see that more as we get further along. Okay, and I'm using a Cindy Wood loom. It's 44 pegs and it's 5/8 inch gauge. Okay, and the size is a small adult head size. That's the size of this. Okay, it's probably comparable in the size hat it does as the 36 peg in the 3/4 inch gauge. And the yarn I'm using is called Saturn's Rings. That's the color, and it's I Love This Chunky Yarn. And it's a nice blend of colors. Apparently, Saturn's Rings are this color. Who knew? So, anyways, I have the video that will show you the cast on that I did for this piece because I am going not using a brim. I'm going straight into the pattern since it's going to be a nice tight weave that's going to be good enough to keep you warm or donate or whatever you want to do with it. So I'll show you the cast on I did and how to get started in the owl eye stitch to keep going. So if you want to do the brim and then we'll catch up and be ready for the next thing, just cast on and then do 12 rows. 12 rows. Okay, and I will briefly show you how to count the rows so you know how many rows you're doing. With owl eye stitch on the front, if you were going to count the rows, you'd pull it down and you'd be counting these little eyes that you see here, which is one of the reasons I call it owl eyes. Okay, owl eye stitch. So anyway, you can count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right, all the way down to 12 down here. Or I find it easier a lot of times to count it on the back. So if you're counting on the back, you have these little lines to count. There we go. Sorry, not in the camera. These little lines to count. So here's the cast on, and you see the row of knit, and then the purl that I did is right in there. So when I'm counting, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right up to here. And then I change direction so you can see this is easier to count from this side when you're counting your owl eye stitches. So owl eye is really, really easy to count your stitches. So you don't have to keep track very much. You just have to count it to see when you're getting close to 12. And that makes it easier. And you have to do at least 12. You could do more than 12 if you wanted to. If you're making a lot bigger hat, you could go up to 15 before you change. I wouldn't go any smaller or you won't get enough of a zigzag. Okay, and the loom hook I'm using, get this in the camera here, it's just a loom hook that I got from a company that doesn't make them anymore, but they have very, very similar ones on Etsy. He makes them in more sizes than this with width and narrow, and you can pick it in more styles than this. And the hook is very similar, but it has a little bit straighter of a point. And I recommend his hooks because I don't know anyone else who makes them that I like at this point. There's the odd other one in wood that is nice too, but there you go. And so I'm going to take you to the other video, and in the other video I'm using a similar yarn. It's still an I Love This Chunky yarn, but I believe it's in another color. But either way, it's exactly the same as I did to cast on and do those first stitches. So we'll go ahead, use that, and then we'll catch up. So we will see you in a bit. What we're going to do is cast on, and I just make a simple slip knot. I just twist it like that, just like that, and put the yarn through. There you go. And I put that on the first peg. Some people put it on there because they don't want to have that little knot in there, but I always hide it. You don't see it. Okay, and I'm going to take the loom hook, put it inside the hook, and scoop it up so that I have a loop. And I'm going to pull this, and because I have this kind of loom, I'm just going to secure it on here, but you can just pull it and keep it tight, but I'm just going to put it on here just to keep it tight. And it came off there just to keep it tight so I can keep my stitches nice and tight and even. And then I just take the loop, put it behind the pegs, and tighten it up. And that's all you do. You keep doing it. You're in control of how big this loop is or how small this loop is just by pulling. Very, very easy cast on. And with the owl eye hat, you can use any cast on you want. I just prefer a nice flat one. If you're using E-wrap, what can happen is E-wrap has that slight curl. But you can use whatever you like, especially if you use a row of knit and a row of purl. Okay, so it doesn't take long to cast on. It goes pretty fast with this. I'll just put you on pause and we'll catch up when I get closer to being at the starting peg. Okay, I'm coming near the end, so I'm going to take this off. There we go. Forgot which way I put it on there. And we're just going to do this. And the last one I usually just put right on. I have different ways I do this. This one I'm going to do like this. And I just knit that off. And then I knit this one off. And there I am, all cast on. Okay, so then we're going to do one row of U-wrap and then one row of purl. Okay, so I'm just going to do U-wrap on the first peg, U-wrap on the second peg, and just U-wrap all the way around the loom. And we'll catch up when I get around and do the one row of purl. Okay, my last U-wrap. And then we do one row of purl. And that just is so that it will stay nice and straight near the cast on. Okay, so we just purl all the way around. You should know how to do a purl. You just put the hook in the loop, pull the new loop through, and then put it on the peg. There's lots and lots of videos on purl, though, if you don't know how. You can get away a lot of times without even doing the row of knit and purl and going right into owl eye, but it really depends on your tightness. Having the right tightness to go with it. This is always safer, especially it can vary with yarns too. So I always do the row of knit and the row of purl on the first few rows, the first couple rows. Okay, so we'll catch up when we get all the way around the loom. Okay, I've done my last row of purl, so we're ready to just start into the stitch. Now, all we do is on the first peg, we do a U-wrap, knit it off, come back around it in front and go over peg 1 and peg 2 and knit them both off. And if you keep it nice and loose, it'll be a lot easier for you to knit it. Okay, so whatever peg you're on is peg 1, you go behind and over peg 1 and 2, and you just knit it off. You're behind peg 1, you go in front of peg 1 and 2, and you just knit it off. And you just keep doing that. So every peg is getting 2 stitches on it. 1 here. When you go back around, go over this one, it gets 2. That's all there is to it. When you just keep going around and around doing this stitch until you get the length that you want. So we will catch up in a bit, and we will see you soon. Okay, so I'm going this way. So you've done from the starting up, and then you've done your first 12. So you're right here, and we're going to be changing direction after 12. So I'm just going the opposite direction to where you'll be when you're changing, but it's the same thing. Whenever you change direction, you're going to do the same thing just from the other side. So I'm going to come up in owl eye. And the stitch before the change peg, which would always be this black peg, will be treated differently. Okay, and when we're coming the other way to change direction, we do it on that peg. Okay, so we're just going to do a U-wrap here, just one U-wrap. Now I'm not sure how many stitches I had on this, because this one wasn't going to be taught different. No, I just had one on here. So there you go, lost my place. So first owl eye, the second owl eye, and then just one on here. Okay, and then we come here and do a U-wrap. We do a tight U-wrap. We want it to be tight. Okay, and we come back around from the U-wrap, from the E-wrap, I mean. We do a E-wrap. We come back around and do a U-wrap over it. Knit it off. Okay, and then we come back to this one, and now we do the 2 stitches on it. Okay, but first I'm going to pull this tight. We want it to be pretty tight right there, so there's no hole. Okay, and then we just do the owl eye the other direction, and we do 12 rows. Okay, so it'd be the same thing as if we were changing direction here. We would come up here and just do the one U-wrap on this one, then the E-wrap, and then another U-wrap, and then you do regular owl eye all the way again that way. So now we do 12 rows this way, and then I'll start to, so I've got my zig, my zag, I'll go up into another zig. Okay, so now you know how to change direction, and from the look of it, I'm going to get at least 3 full zigzags and maybe a 4th one or part of a 4th one before I hit the end of this hat. But I'm changing direction, so just keep doing that every 12 rows, change direction, and when I do the next change, I can come back and go over that one with you, so I will do that. So we will see you in a bit. Okay, so I'm back, and so now what you can see here is that we have more. We've come up there, there, and then there. I don't know if I've got it in a good angle for you to see it. There you can see it's going this way, then it's coming this way, and it's going back that way. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to change directions when you're going this way and you're about to change after your 12 rows. Okay, so we come up, finishing at an owl eye. Okay, and we put our second stitch on here and then our first stitch on here. And we're only going to put the 1 stitch on here. And then we're going to come around and do an E-wrap, and we're going to make sure that's nice and tight. And we're going to pull it so it's tight. And we're going to come back behind it and in front of it in a U-wrap, knit it off. Then we're going to knit this one off and tighten it, and then we're just going to go right back into doing normal owl eye stitch going the other way. Okay, and you do your 12 rows, and I'm actually pretty much long enough, so with the zigzag and the zig, I am long enough for what I'm making. So you can do your 12 12 12 and then just a few going the other direction, or if the 12 12 12 is long enough for you, then there you are. So I'm just going to do a couple rows of E-wrap and bind it off. And so since I have a bind off video of a reduced bind off that'll look really good on this particular hat, I'm going to take you to that, and then we can look at the finished hat. Okay, so let's go to that video. And now we can go ahead and bind it off. And I'm just going to do a slightly decreased bind off so I don't get a lot of bulk. And it's pretty easy to do. So all we're going to do first is do a row of E-wrap. And it doesn't matter which stitch you ended with, whether you ended with the Jupiter stitch or the U-wrap, it'll work fine either way. So we're just going to E-wrap nice and loose all the way around the loom. And the reason you want to keep it loose is you're going to have to move some stitches, and you want to them to be fairly loose to move. I just kind of gently push it to make sure I'm keeping it nice and loose. Okay, and then you're just going to knit the last one to secure it. Knit it over, and then you're just going to go around the loom and knit off the E-wrap. Okay, so I'll just put you on pause and we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that that's done, what you're going to do is you're going to go by twos all the way around the loom, and every second peg is going to go on the first peg, the yarn. So you're going to take it off and you're just going to move it over to the peg before it. So just taking it off and moving it to the peg before it. And you're just going to go all the way around the loom. So you'll have 2 loops on peg 1, nothing, 2 loops on peg 2, nothing, or two loops over here. And you're just going to keep doing that so that every second peg will be blank and every second peg will have the 2 loops on it. Okay? So if you are on a uneven loom, you won't have an even amount of pegs, so you just don't bother doing the last one. Doesn't really matter. And because I kept this nice and loose, it's quite easy for me to move these over. Just awkward because the angle I have it, but okay, so I'm going to put you on pause, and as you see how this is looking, and we're just going to meet up when we have that done. Okay, now that you have that all done, all you're going to do is go around the loom and knit the bottom one over the top, like that. And that reduces the bulk so that your cast off and the back of your hat will lay a lot flatter. And more, and then the one more, and there we are, and there's the working yarn coming out of this one. And then all we're going to do is, with the working yarn, go around the loom 1.5 times and just cut your yarn. Now you can either use your loom hook or a needle, And we're just going to go up and scoop up the loops so we can do a drawstring bind off. And I usually use a needle, but if you were going to use your loom hook, which is easy to do with this method, you just take the yarn and pull it through like that. And if you have a needle, you just put the needle on and you're going to pick it up the same way. I usually use a needle. This is so much easier though when you're doing it sometimes. On a bigger loom, I'd for sure want a needle. Okay, so I'm just going to put you on pause and we'll pick it all up and I'll see you at the beginning. Okay, now when we get all the way around, we make sure we pick up the very first stitch that we had already picked up. You want to make sure that every peg is on here. Now all you have to do is take all the pegs off the loom. You just go around and you just flip them off. I'm just holding on to the drawstring here because I want to make sure that it doesn't come off. And we just take them all off. And you can even do it with your fingers. And there we go. All off the loom. We can just put the loom to the side. We don't need it anymore. And then you're going to take the working yarn and you're just going to drawstring the brim closed. Okay, you're just going to make sure that it's all like that. And then when you get it about halfway, you're just going to take the working yarn and put it through the hat and flip it this way because we're going to finish it on the wrong side. And we just bind it up. And as you see here, it's going to be not as bulky as it would have been. We've thinned that out. Okay, and now this is when we do need a needle. So I'm just going to get a needle. I have a needle in this handy dandy little thing. And also you can cut the working yarn a lot shorter. You just need to sew that close. So I'm going to cut it to about there and put the needle through the yarn, or the yarn through the needle. Okay, there we go. So that's threaded, and we're just going to sew this closed. So what I do is, now that I've bound it up, is I kind of pinch it so I can see where that edge was, and then I make sure it's pulled nice and tight. There's the hole in the middle, so I just want to pinch it so I'm at that hole in the middle. And then I just take the needle and I just sort of sew around in a circle around that hole, just picking up some loops. Okay, and then I'm going to actually do a knot. My loom wants, or my yarn wants to be all weird. Go, and I'm going to do another knot. Just want to make sure that this doesn't come apart. going to go to the other side. And make another knot. And then you can sew the working yarn in if you'd like. I just actually, because it's not going to be reversible, I just cut it and leave it. It's not going to hurt anything. Doesn't bother me. And the other side of your hat looks like this. It's a lot thinner, but we'll take it. And we'll stretch our stitches, because that's what you always do when you make a hat, is you stretch your stitches. You pull it every way and make sure it's all stretched out. And then there's your hat. It's looking really nice. The top is flattened a lot better, your beanie hat, than it would have been. And there you go. You have a beautiful beanie hat. So here's the hat all finished. Going with it like that, and then it zigzags there, and it comes up like that. And so you can see actually turned out really nice. And then there's the reduced bind off, so that it's not bulky, so it's flatter on top. So there you go, all done. I hope you liked it. It just takes your owl eye hat and just gives it a little bit of pizzazz, doing it zigzaggy. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye.